Ever wanted to bounce around an HR issue with a knowledgeable lawyer? Well, now you can. Welcome to We Have This Employee, workplace scenarios from CIE Legal's HR lawyers, where Andrew Marr and Ines Balint chat about their perspective on an HR hot topic.
Hi, welcome to CIE Legal's We Have an Employee podcast. In this podcast, we'll be talking through various HR scenarios from an employment law perspective and giving you our thoughts and some commentary and having a general discussion about some of the issues that arise in those scenarios. Obviously, this is not intended to be legal advice, but hopefully will give some useful pointers for those of you who are dealing with similar situations. And if you have a scenario that you'd like Ines and I to talk through in a future podcast, please email a description of the factual scenario to my email address at amaher, @cielegal.com.au. This will be a regular podcast, so make sure you check in to see if there's any new episodes. Welcome, my name's Andrew Marr and I have with me
Ines Balint.
And we're from the Human Resources Law and Strategy team at CIE Legal. Welcome to the first edition of our new podcast, We Have an Employee... And prior to starting today, we've flipped a coin and Ines unfortunately lost, and so she is going to take the lead today with a set of complex facts that she's come up against recently. Ines, over to you.
Thanks, Andrew. So there is this employee that had a significant decrease in their performance recently. Things like handing in things late, forgetting things, not communicating with the team. They've been employed for about 3 years.
Okay, so not a new employee.
Not a new employee, and generally a pretty reasonable performer. So the employer held a meeting with the employee.
And what sort of meeting was that? Was it a meeting with HR? Was it a meeting with the employee's direct manager?
Direct manager. So it wasn't hey, do you have a quick 10 minutes for a chat? And it wasn't a formal meeting where there was a letter and some period of time given in terms of notice.
So sort of
notice given.
Sort of informal, formal counselling about performance, but not a disciplinary type meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was with the employee's direct manager. So the employer put the concerns to the employee. They acknowledged some of the concerns, but immediately said that they had some personal things going on, were feeling very overwhelmed, and were experiencing some mental health challenges. In the meeting, the employer did the right things. They offered some time off if there have been things going on. They offered EAP, which the employer does have.
And for our listeners' benefit, what is EAP?
Oh, yes, of course. So EAP stands for Employee Assistance Programs.
Yep.
And there are many different providers, but usually the offering involves some kind of maybe like 4 or 5 counselling sessions, I think.
Yeah, sort of confidential counselling. It's not reported back to the employer in terms of the content. There might be sort of a usage pattern might be reported back, but it is giving employees access to a trained counsellor and the ability to talk confidentially about these sort of issues, or in fact any issues that might be impacting on their psychological well-being.
Which is great. It's a great benefit. I don't need any help. I just need to continue with what I'm doing. And they kind of brought the meeting to an end. The next day,
But sorry to interrupt, but was there any sort of follow-up? Yes, let's have a chat, in a couple of weeks' time to see how you're going, or did the meeting just finish with, look, these are the concerns? The employee says, oh, well, actually, it's because of these other issues. The employer says, oh, look, take some leave if you need it, access our EAP. And it was good to speak to you, and hopefully everything will fix itself.
Yeah, it was hopefully everything will be okay. There was a reiteration of, well, look, these are the expectations moving forward. You're now aware of it. So we do need to see an improvement.
Yeah, sure.
The employee then went on 2 weeks sick leave, put in a medical certificate, so personal sick leave. And in the email notifying the employer of the leave, they also included that they had felt targeted by the meeting.
Right. So the employer didn't necessarily know that the leave was for mental health issues, I'm assuming, because as we all know, most medical certificates just say is unable to work from date to date.
Mm-hmm.
But because of that targeted reference, the assumption would be that it's potentially a mental health related period of absence. Okay, so red flag, what next?
So definite red flag here. So in terms of the situation, you have someone who is underperforming.
Yeah.
And employers need their employees to meet expectations to do the job that they've been employed to do. So in terms of some of the issues that are existing, we've got someone potentially who has a disability.
Sorry, when you say disability, again, just tease that out, because, I mean, most of us don't necessarily think that if you're experiencing a period of stress because you've had some negative feedback, that might be a disability. And also, I guess for the benefit, again, of our listeners, what are the implications of it being a disability once you explain what a disability is in this context?
Okay, so you have someone potentially with a protected attribute, and that stems from them saying that they're experiencing some mental health challenges. Now, that doesn't mean that someone has a disability straight away, but under the Fair Work Act, under state and federal anti-discrimination laws, it's not a particularly high bar for someone to be recognised as having a disability. And so as an employer, at this point, it's a red flag that you need to find out more information about.
Yeah, and you use the word protected attribute, and I think it's important for people to understand what protected attribute means in this context. Various forms of anti-discrimination legislation identify a series of characteristics, and they can be things like parental responsibilities, lawful sexual activity, union membership in certain cases, impairments, injuries, disabilities, which are given protection. And if a person experiences discrimination on the basis of that attribute, then the particular legislation gives the person a right to redress.
We've also got a potential workers' comp claim risk on our hands too. Someone that said that they were feeling very overwhelmed, they're feeling targeted now. So it's just something to be aware of. And identifying these red flags early in terms of what are the potential legal issues here and legal risks is helpful, because then it can help, as an employer, it can help you to then understand the available options in moving forward, which won't unnecessarily expose the company to risk.
Yes. Yeah, look, I agree. I think if you get in there early and identify it as a factor that you really do have to take into consideration and perhaps manage potentially independently. I don't want to get ahead of you and your explication of your case study, but it is something that if it's not dealt with in a deliberate sort of way, it can really undermine the whole process later on. So what would you suggest the employer do in this situation?
It's the important message is it can't be ignored. Like that's the point here. We can't ignore this stuff and just keep ploughing forward.
Yeah, that's right.
The employer responded to the employee's email, confirmed receipt of the medical certificate, confirmed that they had sufficient personal sick leave accruals, and reiterated the EAP again. And they did mention the targeted line in the response. They said that the meeting was held with them to advise them of the concerns the employer had, to find out if there is anything the company could do to assist, and to let them, the employee, know so that they were aware and could make the necessary improvements.
So based on what you're saying, the employer has effectively done all the right things up until now.
So in terms of what's the next step, I mean, sit tight. Wait until a couple of days before the employee's expected return. Reach out just to confirm whether or not they intend to return on X date when their medical certificate runs out, and just wait for the employee's next step, really.
Right. So let's play this out. The medical certificate is expired and the employee returns to work. What then? I mean, do you just go on and pretend it all didn't happen, or do you start performance managing the person? What are the sort of things that you'd suggest that the employer consider when the person's come back from this period of leave, even though the medical certificate didn't necessarily identify mental health issues as being the reason for the person's absence? It could have been the flu for all we knew, but because we've got that reference to being targeted, we've put sort of two and two together, and hopefully the real answer isn't 5, but we have concluded that it is probably related to that.
Yeah, so if they return after the 2 weeks, we would definitely want to meet with them on the day. So have a bit of a welcome back meeting. Mm-hmm. How are you? How are things? The last time we spoke, you mentioned you have a lot of things going on. You were feeling quite overwhelmed. How are you feeling that you're back now? Do you feel ready to return? Some of those questions.
So there ends part 1 of our first episode, and we'll be back with what happens next. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for joining us on We Have This Employee. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with your colleagues. You can find this podcast and all episodes in the series on our website, www.cielegal.com.au, on LinkedIn, and all the usual podcast hosting platforms. Until next time, thanks for listening.